I have a couple books out that are here. One of them is The Stars Change. They've got a couple copies up there. Another is Perennial, which is a non-genre garden romance, cancer, memoir, poetry thing. I really don't know what to call it. I had breast cancer and then I wrote a book, so I'm fine now. But we're here to launch Survivor. Yay! Very excited about this book. It comes out from Lethe Press, which is a teeny tiny little press, and it is stories, science fiction and fantasy stories of trauma and survival. So it's a really wide range of stuff. There's, like, the first story is a pretty, like, hard SF military kind of thing. The second story is, like, completely lit fic of the sort of thing you might see in Boston Review or something like that. And like it's just a really wide range of stories that I love and I hope you guys will love. So I have a few copies up front, and if you like it and buy them, and if all of them sell, I'm sure the volumes would be happy to order you more. So, and I'm actually going to read you like just a paragraph from one of the stories, and then I'm going to turn over to finish it. One of my authors is here, and she can read some from her story, but I wanted to read you a little of Brooke Wonder's story. Brooke was one of my, not really one of my students, but was a student at UIC who has recently graduated and gone off to her first academic job, and we're very proud of her. So, Brooke, this is for you. I wanted to read a little bit from An Affectionate Silence. From the very first, Willow could see my silences. Her eyes kept flicking to the floor beneath the coffee table where two silences cuddled, grooming one another and pawing at their sutured mouths. Willow lifted a thick eyebrow at me, questioning, like she was trying to set me off my rocker. I'd gotten to believe they weren't there for anyone else. Beside her sprawled an unbelievably large white silence, its mouth sealed with thick red thread. It had grown bigger over the past month. It terrified me. May I pet it? Willow asked. I wouldn't if I were you. The girl considered this, teacup balanced on her knees. Her eyebrows were unkempt, and her hunched shoulders made her seem years older than 18. Too skinny to be pretty, she wore pants 2 sizes too big and a faded hoodie printed with a spaceship and the word Serenity. I thought Willow would ignore me, as most teenagers do advice from their elders, but she opted not to touch the white silence, though she wondered aloud if it was skittish, declawed, or just plain mean. You have so many. Are they all different breeds? Something like that. What are their names? She asked. And so I told her, pointing to each in turn. Edgar, Timothy, Alice, Marie, Dr. Pillswitch, Dr. Daughter-in-law, PhD, former husband. That one had vicious claws. Mrs. Casserole, Mrs. Best of Intentions, and Mrs. How Are You Feeling? That'd be Willow's mother, the one who had invited her daughter over to my house to check up on me. I listed them all, though some I could scarcely see, so faint had their outlines become. Daughter mine miscarried. The first time ever I saw your face. Willow's eyebrows raised higher and higher as I progressed through the litany. The white silence I refused to name. Those names are weird, Willow said when I was through. What's wrong with their mouths? I'm going to stop there and call up Angeli Primlani. Yay!
Hi, I'm completely unprepared for this.
Yeah, she just came to dinner and I was like, oh, come ready.
Okay. How much time?
Not long.
Okay. So, I know. I'm just trying to find a good place to start. This is a short story. It's set in, I'll just start at the beginning. It's set in rural North Carolina in what is supposed to be the near future, although it turns out the near future is a lot closer than we thought it was. And it's called The Day Anne-Marie Went to the House. Anne-Marie Winstead always thought of herself in the third person. She knew that was probably a little weird, but she figured living in a tobacco barn was weird, and her brother Kyle stealing books to teach her sister Loretta fractions was weird, Dropping out of the 6th grade was weird, and not remembering anything that happened before last Thanksgiving was weird. By the time that man showed up in early October, she pretty much decided that there was no point in worrying about what was weird because winter was on its way and she and her brothers and sisters just weren't ready for it. On the day the man showed up, she was sitting in the loft, looking at the cracks in the roof and worrying about rain. Anne-Marie wished Kyle and Laurel would steal a tarp. She wondered how difficult it would be to steal. Food was easy, and books were dead easy, especially books that you didn't need batteries to read. Laurel said they were easy to steal because nobody cared about them much, but Anne-Marie cared a good deal. She was stuck out in the woods on her own most of the time. They would take Loretta when they hopped the train into town sometimes, but not her. Never her. So she read everything, even Wayne's comics with the dirty pictures in them. When she ran out of books, she made up her own stories. The bullet train wasn't that far away. From time to time, the howl and screech came around to remind her it was 2039, but the rest of the time, it could be any year, especially up in that loft. She could be tracking Algonquins through those very woods or aboard a pirate ship with Stede Bonnet and Calico Jack. North Carolina history was one of her most precious books. Loretta liked math. Even though Loretta was only 6, she'd done all the fractions in the book 3 times. She carefully erased them and did them all again. Anne-Marie didn't like math. She was forgetting pre-algebra. She could steal a pre-algebra book if she could get into town, but Wayne and Kyle and Laurel didn't want her to go into town. But someday she would hop that train herself. Not yet. It never slowed down enough for her. She was afraid of it, to Laurel's eternal scorn. Anne-Marie liked the words eternal scorn. She'd read them in one of Laurel's historical romances, or as the boys called them, hysterical romances. Anne-Marie wanted to have eternal scorn for something. Laurel was 15 and had eternal scorn for everything. She picked up a piece of pine straw that blew in through the roof and pulled it apart. I have internal scorn for pimento cheese, she said. Pimento cheese was what they were having for dinner unless the commando raid was a success. Then she heard someone screech. The trap closed in on someone. The person she didn't yet know was the man. Anne-Marie leaned over and called down through her legs. Loretta! Loretta's straw-colored head appeared out of the patch of weeds. Go see if we got any onions in the patch. You know I done picked them. You have picked them all, Anne-Marie corrected. She only had a 6th grade education, but she was going to do right by Loretta the best she could. I have picked them all, said Loretta carefully. Wayne said he'd get us potato chips. Go look at the patch near the house. Hell no, I ain't going near your house. Anne-Marie and Kyle used to live in the house. Kyle was the only one who was really Anne-Marie's brother. Anne-Marie had to remind herself of that sometimes. Don't say hell and don't say ain't. We need onions for supper. Loretta made a cross sound, but she got up, and Anne-Marie watched as she headed over the overgrown ruts where the soybeans used to grow. Even though the house was scary, and no way was Anne-Marie going to the house, at least Loretta was out of the way. Anne-Marie climbed out of the loft and dropped into the main room. There were 3 levels to a tobacco barn, and this used to be a real one. The middle had a nice solid wood floor, stained brown from all the old leaves, but not damp at all. The bottom floor had a dirt floor. That's where they kept the kitchen. The camp stove, cooler, cooking stuff included a huge jar of oil and a shaker of garlic. But the main room was Anne-Marie's pride. It was very much her creation, since nobody else cared enough to make things nice. All the blankets were folded neat. All the books were kept in a bookshelf she'd made out of bricks. The food was locked away in a big blue plastic trunk to keep the mice out. There was an old beach towel for a rug, some singed pillows, and a broken cup with transplanted violets in it. They were still alive. Anne-Marie reached for the long-handled candle lighter and realized too late it wasn't there. Laurel must have been using it to light a fire outside. And then she turned and saw the lighter on the rug. She didn't remember leaving it there. She picked it up, turned the setting on it to the highest one, the one for starting outdoor campfires. She opened the barn door, and there was the man, stuck in the trap Kyle put out for squirrels. He had long hair. He had dirty fingernails. He was wearing a long brown coat that had thorn burrs in it. He was hanging onto the rung with one hand. In the other, he had a gun. "Don't scream," he said, "or I'll kill you." Anne-Marie didn't scream. She didn't even want to scream. A chorus of cicadas rose up, got louder, and fell again. She stood in the doorway, looking down at the gun for what seemed like a very long time. The man had dark green eyes. They looked at her narrowly, like she was food. Sweat rolled down his eyebrows. She thought, from very far away, that it was still too warm for that winter coat. He must be burning up. She kicked the lighter and set his coat on fire. Yow! He jerked backwards like a cartoon figure and flipped down, falling into the dirt and leaves and rolling like a pig. The gun went flying into the air and landed in a patch of poison oak. There was a pop, and a bird fell out of a tree. Suddenly, all the birds in the area took flight in a tremendous cloud, scattering droppings as they went. Anne-Marie ducked inside and watched the patterns they made in the air. The man made muffled grunts as he tried to put the fire out. Anne-Marie picked up the spade. She stood over the man as he lay in the scorched shreds of his coat. He was lying on his back, breathing heavily. She put the tip of the spade against his throat and planted her feet. "Be still," she said, "or I'll plant you one in the neck." She hoped she sounded like Kyle. The man relaxed, like all the fight went right out of him. That was weird, but again, Anne-Marie was over the weird things. He was wearing a necklace, and the chain wrapped just below the tip of her shovel. It looked like gold, but who could tell? Not all gold was real. Wayne told her that after a job went bad. "What's your name, kid?" asked the man. "Princess Dominique," said Anne-Marie, "and I'll ask the questions." "Okay," he said, "ask." "Okay," she said. It took her a second to think of a question. "What's your name?" "My name is Ephraim. Ephraim Ben." "What kind of foreign name is that?" "I'm Jewish." "Oh?" Anne-Marie wondered what Jewish was. She pressed the tip of her spade into his neck, pushing the links of the chain ever so gently. "Do you have any books?" "What?" "Books. And money. Hand it over." "I don't have any money," said the man. "You're all alone out here, aren't you?" "No, she's not," said Kyle, who picked then to come up behind her. "Good night," said Wayne. "What do you have there?" Anne-Marie turned red. She felt like she'd been caught doing something ridiculous. It was worse when Laurel laughed. "Well, will you look at that?" "Get the gun," said Anne-Marie. "It fell in the poison oak." Laurel stopped laughing then, and Ephraim's eyes started to harden, but his muscles tensed like he was about to grab something. But he lay very still until Laurel came over, pointing the pistol at his chest. Still, Anne-Marie didn't move, just concentrated all of her energy keeping the spade pressed in at the point above his necklace. "You can put the shovel down, Princess Dominique," said Ephraim Ben. "Shut up, you," said Laurel. Anne-Marie's arms shook as she slowly handed the shovel to Kyle.